Now we're going to talk about immigration within the context of capitalism. So two of our favorite topics, we're going to combine it into one. We're going to talk to veteran journalist Jeffrey Kaye. He's a longtime contributor to the PBS NewsHour, and he's written the book, Moving Millions, How Coyote Capitalism Fuels Global Immigration. Jeffrey, welcome to the Young Turks.
Thank you very much for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Great to have you. First, what does coyote capitalism mean?
Well, you know what a coyote is, right? It's a slang term for a human smuggler. And it's the job of a coyote or a human smuggler to get a migrant, someone across the border. They don't really care about why they're coming, where they're coming from, and the reasons they're pushing them out possibly, and the reasons that are pulling them in, where they're going. They don't care about the conditions once they arrive. Their job is to get paid to get someone across the border, pure and simple. Similarly, you've got a system. I'm not using that in a conspiratorial way, but if you look globally at trade policies, at national policies, we move people around almost like interchangeable parts. Don't really care about what the circumstances are that are driving them or what happens when they get there. Migrants are part of the economic machinery. So that's how I'm using the term coyote capitalism.
All right, and what do you mean that it fuels global immigration? I mean, other than obviously you need this system to bring them in, but what's the actual impetus behind all of this?
Yeah, well, I guess what I'm trying to do is get away from the fixation on the legal status of migrants, which so preoccupies us, and look at some of the root causes that drive migrants. And I'm obviously talking about economic migrants. You know, there are all kinds of people who migrate for various reasons, climate change or catastrophe, war, those kinds of things. But I'm really focusing on people who move across borders because they're looking to improve their lives because there are opportunity on one side of the border, or looking at what might be driving people out, lack of opportunity, on the other side of the border. And my contention is, frankly, that unless you really look at the causes of migration, you're not really going to be able to solve or deal with the issue in a way that makes sense. We're just recycling the old debates over and over again, particularly when the economy goes bad, and people often look to scapegoat migrants. I'm saying we've got to look beyond some of the surface issues.
All right, well, but let's tackle that. First of all, when people talk about the long-term causes, I'm very sympathetic to that, obviously, but at the same time, it seems like it takes such a long time for anyone to have enough sense to actually tackle the long-term causes that it might make sense to address some things in the short term. How am I seeing that wrong?
Well, no, you got to look at both the short term and the long term, and you can't ignore either one. But we do seem to be ignoring the long term issues. So no, I'm not going to disagree with the contention that we need to look at it all as a whole and figure out what's causing migration before and tackle it in a way that makes sense. You know, over the centuries, we've tried to pass laws and put up higher fences and border guards and what have you, but where the equation makes sense to people, where people are being pushed out, pulled in, they're going to take the risk and they're going to move. Yeah. I mean, it's the history of this country.
I understand that, and look, I'm a little ambivalent on all this because I think walls do work, but not the one we're building along our border because it doesn't cover the whole border. So of course people can just quite literally walk around it. So it's ridiculous. But that's I guess a topic for another day. I want to go to the heart of this matter because I mean that's what you're writing about. So how do you address that long-term problem? How do you stop the coyote capitalism in the first place?
Well, you look at policies that are encouraging migration. For example, if we sell corn to Mexico at cheap prices, undercutting farmers there who are trying to grow their corn, and of course our corn is subsidized, so we can ship it abroad, undercut the prices of corn in Mexico. Farmers don't have other jobs. What do? They look north. They go north. So there's sort of a cause and effect right there, and it's not just Mexico and the United States. I think Americans have to understand that what's happening is not confined to North America, but it's happening everywhere around the world where there's a disparity in income, where you have the developed country, the developed world, and the undeveloped world. Europe's going through exactly the same thing. When England has its elections next week, they're also going to be thinking about immigration, just as France and Denmark and Italy, where there have been strikes, and Spain, where there have been riots. They're also contemplating and figuring out how to seal their borders, how to prevent Africans from moving across.
But Jeffrey, all right, let's get to the heart of it, because one, if you think it's not just the corn subsidy, right? I mean, first, if it is, then we got a problem with democracy, because as much as I hate those corn subsidies, those are senators from those states, corn-growing states, that wind up, manipulating the politics of the situation to get those subsidies. Now, I don't like it, but it is part and parcel of how we run our democracy. But I think they would have been coming even without the subsidies. And how do you fix that problem?
Well, I think, I'm not an economist, and I'm not suggesting that I have all the answers. I'm just saying that we're not even addressing them. The first thing I think we need to start doing is looking at migration as a natural human event. We all, either we have done it, I've certainly done it in my family, or our ancestors have done it, so we're kind of hardwired to do it if the circumstances present themselves. So we've got to start looking and treating immigration as an international issue, not just as a national issue. Arizona can't fix the problem. The United States by itself can't fix the problem. By its nature, immigration is an international issue. There's a border involved. So one of the first things we've got to do is start talking to Mexico in a serious way, which we don't really do. We try to treat it as just a national issue.
I agree with you entirely on that. And we're talking to Jeffrey Kaye. He's a contributor to the PBS NewsHour, also the author of this book, Moving Millions, How Coyote Capitalism Fuels Global Immigration. So you're right, it's an international problem. You got to talk to Mexico, et cetera. But and the reason I keep asking you is because I don't have a great sense of it myself. I know that the best way to stop illegal immigration into the country is to actually do something about the companies that are hiring the illegal workers here in the U.S., because it's all about demand, and if they have that demand, the supply will come. I understand that part. But what would you talk to Mexico about? How do we fix the structural problems, the fact that America is a richer country than Mexico, and obviously, as happened in the history of the world, and as you talk about, people will naturally flow to a place where they are able to earn a better living for their family.
Right. Well, again, I'm not going to pretend to be an economist, and I'm looking at, you're looking at economical structural problems that deal with disparities and lack of opportunity, and issues regarding investments, economic development, all the kinds of same issues that the United Nations and others are addressing with the Millennium Project and others. It's all tied in with the ability or our inability to deal with global poverty and global inequality. Now that may seem simple and it may seem obvious, but it's not a road, it's not a path we're taking. Janet Napolitano famously said, "You show me a 50." When she was governor of Arizona, border state, "You show me a 50-foot fence, I'll show you a 51-foot ladder." She was right then. She's not really repeating that these days, but that principle will hold. And I don't care the size of the fence or how many Border Patrol agents we put on the border. And Europe, as I say, is doing exactly the same thing, building Fortress Europe, trying to stop people from moving. It's not going to work.
Well, then let me end on this note, because I am skeptical that there is anything that can be done about it. And let me explain what I mean by that. It's like, in science you're taught that if you have two areas that are split, and then I'm going to do a terrible job of explaining this, but let's say it's that you're in a house and you open the window, eventually the temperature outside and the temperature inside are going to be the same. You're going to get some sort of equilibrium. It won't be that way in the beginning, but eventually you will. And now in economics, there's a very similar principle. And eventually, people will go from poorer areas to richer areas until you get equilibrium. Now, people hate that, and if they live in the richer areas. And I know there's a lot of progressives who don't like that idea. There's a lot of Americans who don't like that idea. But I see it as an inevitability. So we can have these conversations, but you can't stop science. And I know I'm, being very loose with my science here, so-called science. But do you see what I'm driving at, Jeffrey?
So you close the window.
No.
You are forever warm, but you're cut off from the rest of the.
No. I'm on the exact opposite side. No, I'm on the exact opposite side. The conservatives say close the window. I say open the window, get real. Okay, and you're going to get equilibrium. So for me, pathway to citizenship, because they're going to come no matter what, and then you should have a sane and reasonable way of dealing with it. But the idea that some progressives have, and they won't like that I'm saying this, is that we're going to go back to the old days. This kind of reminds me of the conservatives. We're going to go back to the 1950s, and we're going to have this great American middle class, and we're going to go back and open up manufacturing plants, and Americans are going to work at them, and we're going to have these great jobs. I think those days are gone, and I think
I agree with you completely. Yeah, I agree with you.
I think we're going to get to equilibrium at some point, and that's going to be tough and painful, but that's right. How it happens.
I'll leave you with this. Anytime, the sad thing that's happening now is I see immigrants being treated as scapegoats. I think it's happened time and again. When the economy goes south, as it were, we tend to scapegoat migrants. We deport them. It happens. It's happened to the Chinese. It's happened to Mexicans several times. It's happened to, we put quotas on Southern Europeans, Eastern Europeans. I think we all came, those of us who are related to migrants in some way, for the same reasons. And if we're going to, and we need to think about a humane way to put our feet into the shoes of those people who are still trying to come across. And that's one thing I think we need to kind of open our eyes and deal with this issue in a humane way. And I'm afraid that we're kind of going the opposite direction with some of the very negative and frankly racist comments that I've seen, and as we try to address the issue.
Fair enough. I totally agree about that. Jeffrey Kaye's book is Moving Millions: How Coyote Capitalism Fuels Global Immigration. Thank you so much for joining us on the Young Turks. Really appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure, Jake. Thanks very much.